You are listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern vitality. If you are seeking to reconnect with your innate vibrancy, you're in the right place. I'm Emily Davis, a seasoned holistic esthetician and herbalist. Join me as we unlock the secrets of ancient skincare practices, explore the beauty of seasonal and nature-based living, herbalism, and true holistic well-being for you and the broader ecosystem. Okay, so at the time of this recording, it's early May in the Northern Hemisphere. Well, it's early May everywhere, but it's spring in the Northern Hemisphere. And one of the biggest things that I'm hearing from clients and customers right now is that their skin is so dry. So I thought it would be fun to lay out everything that I recommend for dry skin in one episode. I am an herbalist and an esthetician, and the insights that I share are based on my experience and knowledge in these fields. Please remember that my suggestions are never medical advice. They are intended to inspire you to explore and understand your own body better. You know your body best, so use this information as a starting point to discover what works uniquely for you. So this episode was made with you in mind. If you are currently living with dry or dehydrated skin and you feel like you've tried everything, or even if you don't know where to start at all. Today, I'm going to talk about what dry versus dehydrated skin is and discuss a bit about hydration and how to hydrate better. I'm going to talk about causes of dry skin because it's not ever just a lack of skincare. I can promise you that. I'm going to talk about some modalities that you can utilize to support your skin's ability to have natural moisture. And then I am going to, of course, talk about products that will help. And I'll finish with my top 3 favorite ingredients for dry/dehydrated skin. So let's get into it. Dry and dehydrated skin might seem very similar, but they're actually quite different. Dry skin is a skin type that is caused by a lack of oil, which means it naturally produces less sebum. It often will feel flaky and rough. And then on the other hand, dehydrated skin is a condition where there's a lack of water in the skin, not necessarily a lack of oil. So it can feel tight and look dull, and you may notice more pronounced fine lines. If your skin feels tight after cleansing, or if you pinch together the skin on your forehead and you see a fine line staying in place longer, then you're likely dealing with dehydration. For dry skin, it's more about a constant, rough, dry feeling with very tiny to invisible pores. You can have dry and dehydrated skin, and you can also have oily skin that is dehydrated. And although it's really good to understand the difference here, primarily if you have oily skin, I think it's great to know that you can still have dehydrated skin. And that's why your skin may feel really confused. But I think it's also important to address both of these things. We always want to have proper moisture in our skin, and we always want to have proper hydration. So I'm going to address both of these in this episode. And I first want to talk about how to get truly hydrated. Just drinking a ton of water isn't necessarily the solution here. Adequate hydration is going to involve much more than just chugging water all the time. It's going to require a balance of electrolytes and water to ensure that the water is not only absorbed, but at it's also effectively utilized at the cellular level. You want the water to actually hydrate the cell. The body's cells operate in part based on electrical gradients. These gradients are crucial for various cellular functions, including the movement of water both into and out of the cells. Minerals like electrolytes, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, all play a critical role in this true hydration because they're helping maintain the body's fluid balance and the electrical gradients across cell membranes. They're essentially acting as like a gatekeeper, aiding in the transport of water and nutrients into the cells, and then also helping with the removal of waste products out of the cell. And this is so important, especially if you are doing lymphatic drainage, because you want to effectively move the waste out of that cell. So I'm a big fan of incorporating minerals into your life. It's kind of hard because our soil isn't the same as it used to be. And so it's really important to very mindfully incorporate minerals into your body. There's a really great book, not necessarily about the minerals, but about true hydration, called Quench. One of my favorite books ever. I never thought that I needed to read a book about drinking water, but it was so good. And it goes into the fourth phase of water, which is a gel. And this is the phase that water actually is in our cells. And the gel water is, of course, going to enter your cells with much more ease. So, eating water by consuming juicy produce like cucumbers, berries, citrus fruits. I will often add a pinch of sea salt to my water. And I really love incorporating mineral rich teas every single day. My skin has never looked better than when I started doing this. So, I'll drink things like nettle, oat straw, cleavers. I always like to throw a little marshmallow in there. You can purchase herbs from a local apothecary in bulk and then drink them as like a loose leaf tea. You can order them online from Mountain Rose Herbs is a great place, or from local herb farms. If you just Google that, you may be able to find one that sells to consumer. Etsy, you can sometimes find apothecaries on there. Bone broth is also a great way to improve hydration because it's also so mineral rich, but then has the healthy fats. Consuming seaweed regularly. I always get my seaweed from a company called Atlantic Holdfast Seaweed Company. They are definitely superior quality, in my opinion, and they're highly ethical. And apparently, that's a whole thing in the seaweed world. So, Atlantic Holdfast Seaweed Company is fantastic. I will also, from time to time, incorporate electrolytes if I need a little extra. And this isn't an ad, it's not an affiliate, but I do like Element, spelled LMNT. And I like them because I do think that it tastes better and they don't have added sugars like companies like Liquid IV does, which is not a helpful thing. So that's hydration. That's kind of my little take on how to get more deeply hydrated, how to hydrate your skin cells more effectively. And now let's talk about some causes of dry skin. I have 6. It's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's other causes out there, but these were my top 6. And the first one is top of mind right now because it is early spring where I live, and seasonal allergies is a big thing. They can totally mess with your skin, especially leading to dryness. When you have allergies, your body is going to, of course, release histamine, which is a chemical that can cause both inflammation and irritation. And this reaction can make your skin feel super dry and itchy, especially around your eyes and your nose. And unfortunately, antihistamines can dry your skin out even more. So, what I like to do for seasonal allergies, which I only recently started to somewhat experience them a little bit, so it's been a little strange, but what I have done to find relief and what I know others have done to find relief include nettle tea. So she's working double time for us. She's super mineral rich, also amazing for soothing seasonal allergies. Other herbs include mullein, goldenrod, elderflower, feverfew, which I highly recommend. Growing feverfew. I'm going to plant it this year. My neighbor has it growing, and I'm so in love with how cute it is in her yard. It's also called bachelor's button. It kind of looks like chamomile, but it's just a really pretty, delicate white flower. So, side note. Also, consuming local honey is really helpful. Both quercetin and bromelain are supplements that I've found helpful. And an essential oil that's been my go-to, which is always my go-to for any respiratory issues, is called Ravent Sara. I, again, purchased that from a company called Eden Botanicals, not to be confused with Eden's Gardens, but they're called Eden Botanicals, and I love their quality. I love their ethics. I love the education that they share on their website. They're beautiful. But the Ravent Sara, the organic Ravent Sara that I utilize, I put a little bit on a tissue and stick it in my nose and then inhale. And it's like the greatest breath of fresh air that you've ever experienced. Okay, so that is allergies. Number 2 on our things that may cause dry skin is chronic stress. Consistently elevated cortisol can decrease our skin's ability to both produce and retain moisture. And this is because cortisol naturally inhibits our skin's oil glands. And I do want to mention as a side note that this doesn't necessarily mean that you're always feeling stressed. Cortisol is naturally supposed to rise during the day, and that's a good thing. Cortisol isn't like evil, and we want to banish all cortisol in our body, because if we don't have enough cortisol production at the right time, we can't really do the things that we want to do. But many people are living with imbalanced cortisol or cortisol being produced at the wrong times. For example, blue light given off by the sun in the middle of the day is a trigger for cortisol to rise. And again, this is a good thing. However, blue light in your eyes in the evening from your phone or from the LED lights in your house actually keeps your cortisol high at the wrong time. It's supposed to be low when we wake and then naturally rise through the day and then come down again in the evening. But with modern living, we're just like in chronic cortisol production, and that's where we're seeing issues with it. Additionally, lack of sleep can raise cortisol. High refined carb and sugar intake can cause blood sugar spikes, followed by a rapid drop, which can stimulate cortisol. Drinking caffeine on an empty stomach will trigger it. Alcohol, extremely high intensity workouts all the time can contribute to excess cortisol. And so all of this is inhibiting our skin's natural ability to produce the oil that protects it and keeps it moisturized. So this is just something to keep in mind, remembering that it's all connected and dry skin is not just about using the right moisturizer. It's so much deeper than that. So number 3 on the list is a disrupted barrier. What is the skin barrier? If you're new here, buckle up because you're going to hear about this thing called the skin barrier a lot. I talk about it quite often. I'm actually in the middle of writing an article called how the skin barrier became mainstream for a skincare education industry magazine for estheticians. It's just something I'm so passionate about and love that we have so much more attention on it more recently. The skin's barrier is basically your skin's first layer. It's like the protective layer. It's made up of cells and lipids that protect your skin from environmental factors like pollutants, and it also protects from a loss of water in the skin. So, very relevant for both dehydration and dry skin. So, a disrupted barrier, this is when things start to go south. It means that your skin's protective layer has been weakened or damaged, and this can happen for a multitude of reasons. It can happen from harsh skincare products, overexfoliation, environmental stressors, like if you live in a high pollution area or if you're exposed to chlorine, for example, quite a bit, things like this. When your skin barrier is compromised, it can lead to issues like dryness, dehydration, irritation, redness, breakouts. If you have any type of a rash on your skin, it is a sure sign that your skin barrier is compromised. If your skin suddenly feels extra sensitive, if it feels unusually dry, that might also be a sign that your skin barrier just needs a little TLC. It's something that can quite easily be repaired. Almost every time I see a new client, they will have a disrupted barrier, and it's something that we're able to adjust and fix within a matter of months. So, a good way to nurse it back to health is by dialing back on the irritating treatments, loading up on gentle products, or even taking a break from skincare while your skin recalibrates. Okay, so number 4 on our list of things that contribute to dry skin is poor cell to cell communication. So, skin cell communication. Our skin cells all speak to each other. So they're sitting in layers like little bricks, and they're all talking to each other, kind of like they're texting. So hormone signaling is allowing them to talk to each other. But imagine it's like they're texting and they need cell reception in order to get the message across. And there can be disruptions in this cellular communication that can lead to inadequate moisture in the skin. So, we have these components in our skin called natural moisture factors, and they help our skin to retain moisture and to produce moisture. And disruptions in this cellular communication can lead to inadequate production of this or distribution of these moisturizing factors, which can make dryness worse. The lack of being able to text can also contribute to old cells not being able to slough off and new ones popping up to the surface. So that's called our cellular turnover. You may have heard of this before. We want to have a healthy cellular turnover. And often people will turn towards things like exfoliation or chemical peels to spark more cellular turnover. But the reason that I'm not a huge fan of going in that direction is that too much or too harsh of exfoliation can actually contribute to this poor cell to cell communication. And other things that can contribute include extreme elements like too hot or too cold for too long, excess sun exposure. So I love the sun. The sun is our life force. We are in a society where we fear the sun to such an excess. I am never, ever the esthetician who's telling you you need to wear sunscreen all day, every day. I do not believe that. I don't practice that myself. However, excess sun exposure is not healthy. It is not good to be burning We know that, and we want to protect our skin from the elements. And excess sun exposure will also lead to this poor cell to cell communication. Additionally, vitamin deficiencies, alcohol consumption, and again, of course, chronic stress. We might as well layer that one in there too. Number 5 on our list is a lack of proper fat assimilation. So, eating enough healthy fat is really important. We know this. Things like avocados, olive oil, coconut, wild caught fish, ghee, even things like grass-fed butter, grass-fed red meat. These are all going to contribute to our fat in our body. However, we have to be able to actually assimilate or absorb the fat from our diet. So, working with a qualified nutrition professional would be a great thing to do if you suspect that you're not properly assimilating the fat that you eat. And then finally, the last two I kind of combined into one. But medical conditions that can contribute or cause dry skin, and medical interventions like pharmaceuticals that can contribute to or cause dry skin. So, medical conditions that may be a factor in dry skin include diabetes, hypothyroidism, renal disease, liver disease, or liver dysfunction. And then medical interventions or pharmaceuticals that may contribute or cause dry skin. The first one that comes to mind is definitely chemotherapy. Every time that I have worked with a client who is undergoing a chemotherapy treatment, the skin is often severely dry and dehydrated. Statins and cholesterol lowering drugs, birth control, the pill, immunosuppressants, nasal decongestants, beta blockers, diuretics that are often prescribed for high blood pressure, both topical and oral retinoids, and of course, acne medications like Accutane will severely dry the skin. So, what can we do? Of course, addressing lifestyle factors is going to be foundational here. So, taking everything that I said previously in this episode and making some tweaks. It's just a great time to tinker. It's all an experiment. It does not have to feel overwhelming. Taking things one step at a time and just noticing. It's all about everything. I feel like is an experiment. It's all a science experiment, just observing what's happening with your body, with the things going on around you. And some things are not in your direct, immediate control. And that's okay, because I have some great additional options that you can utilize with products. And that's why skincare products are such a beautiful thing. I think that it is a two-way street. We work on the inside, and then we also work on the symptoms on the outside. I do not think that there's anything wrong with this type of a Band-Aid approach. So, in addition to assessing and addressing lifestyle concern or lifestyle issues, if you live in an arid place, I'm in Colorado, so it's very dry and arid here, a humidifier can go a long way. Obviously, be sure to clean it regularly. Next is facial massage. It's such a beautiful way to support the skin's natural ability to moisturize itself. Lymphatic movement is so important for getting fluids flowing and hydration into the cell. I love the lymph brush, which I carry on my website. It makes practicing lymphatic drainage manipulation like a no-brainer, because it can be a little bit hard to get the proper manipulations down with your hands. And so the lymph brush makes it very easy to do. Facial cupping is great because it supports the connective tissue and the extracellular matrix within the skin. It can stimulate blood flow, which nourishes skin cells. Gua sha is all about supporting the fascia and blood movement, again, nourishing those skin cells. And of course, the most magical tool in our toolbox is our hands and doing manual facial manipulation every single day. You can check out my YouTube for support on how to most effectively massage your face. But again, use your intuition, do what feels good. I'm a big fan of microneedling to support and wake up healthy cell to cell communication. Growth factors and cytokines released in response to the micro injuries that we get when we are doing a microneedling treatment facilitate cellular communication to coordinate healing and rejuvenation. And then let's get into products. So, first things first, if your skin's really dry, change your cleanser to a gentle cleansing milk or a cleansing cream. This is going to provide a layer of protection on your skin without stripping that barrier on the surface, like sometimes a foam or a gel cleanser will. Next is to ditch the acids and other harsh exfoliation methods, like dermaplaning, for example. And I know this is hard to hear. It may trigger you. I have a blog post that I wrote on my Substack about why I discontinued dermaplane from my treatment menu. And why. And I should make it into a podcast. So don't hate me, but these types of treatments are really just creating a bigger problem for skin that is unhealthy. It seems like the best thing that you could do is dermaplane, but it's actually destroying the microbiome and it's completely removing that barrier that we talked about before. So if the skin's already severely dry, you have a disruption in your barrier and it needs to be built up, not further damaged. So if you want to exfoliate, a different, better option here is a fruit enzyme like papaya or something really gentle like honey. I love the Live Botanicals Glowing Honey Mask or Laurel's Honey Berry Mask. Hydrating serums followed by an oil or a balm or even a cream can help here. When I think hydrating serum, I often think hyaluronic acid. And I've debated hyaluronic acid back and forth with myself quite often. And at this point in time, in general, I think it can be helpful for some people. However, it needs to be a really good quality formulation, and it always works best when sealed with oil. The reason is that hyaluronic acid is a humectant, which means that it pulls water to itself. And if there's no water to pull from the environment, it's going to actually pull it from your skin. So in really dry climates, it can contribute to dehydration. But I feel like if there's a good water balance in the product and the serum is then sealed with an oil or a cream that has an oil or a butter in it, it's not too problematic for the right person. But do consider that if you have really dry skin and you're using hyaluronic acid, take it out, see if it changes anything. Again, I'm a big fan of tinkering around and listening to what the body has to say in response. I love mushrooms like snow mushroom as a beautiful alternative to hyaluronic acid if it is problematic for you. So finally, with products, you want to evaluate your moisturizer. And oil mixed with a hydrating tonic or a balm mixed with a hydrating tonic are both great options. A balm is essentially a solidified oil with the presence of maybe a butter and a type of wax. I did an episode a few weeks ago about balms and about oils. So if you haven't yet, go give that a listen. But these are so beautiful because they're often quite nourishing for the skin. They can seal in that water moisture if you have dehydration happening, and they're not disruptive to the skin barrier. But it's really important to understand that oil alone is not enough. Oil alone is just going to sit on the surface of the skin. It really needs to be applied with a good amount of a hydrating tonic so that it can absorb properly and effectively hydrate the skin. A cream is also a wonderful option here. A cream is basically a water and an oil brought together with a few ingredients to mix them together and maybe thicken the moisture or the mixture up. So, with that being said, if you have severely impaired skin, it may be best to go with an oil or a balm along with the hydrating tonic to avoid those extra ingredients. These are just some things that you want to be aware of with creamy creams. And the main ingredient that I try to steer clear of is really strong synthetic emulsifiers. An emulsifier is an ingredient that mixes the water and the oil together in the bottle so that they don't separate and stay as one beautiful creamy consistency. If a formula is really heavy with them or they are a really strong version of an emulsifier, it can cause what's called a washout effect. And this can contribute to dry or dehydrated skin. So, the washout effect refers to a phenomenon where strong emulsifiers strip away the skin's natural oils and lipids, which then weaken that protective barrier and lead to increased dryness. So basically, the chemical can't really tell the difference between the oil in the product or the oil in the skin that it's supposed to mix with the water. So it will pull the oil from the skin, our natural oils, to mix it. And then when you wash your face, it takes the product and your natural oil along with it down the drain. So some examples that you can look for on an ingredient deck include sodium lauryl sulfate, sodium laureth sulfate, isopropyl palmitate, sorbitane oleate, polyethylene glycol, which will have the acronym PEG, PEG. And not all PEGs are made equally. I don't want to just have a blanket statement that they're evil. Some are better than others, but for clients with really dry skin, I do try to avoid this very common ingredient so that we can instead focus on building up their barrier. And I've seen these synthetic emulsifiers in many products like Eucerin and Cetaphil or Dove lotions, which it's like they're just out there trying to act like they're there to heal your skin, but they're actually impairing its natural function. But I also see them in a lot of quote unquote clean products. Things like Whole Foods brand products, the Kiss My Face brand. I've found them in Primally Pure. I've found them in a few beauty counter products. And the thing is, just because something is considered not toxic to the environment or quote unquote eco friendly doesn't mean that it's amazing for the skin. And I'm not ragging on these products in any way. If you use them and your skin is healthy with a smooth texture and it's not dry, then that's awesome. But I would say don't get too attached to a brand because you are capable of having really healthy, really smooth, really plump skin. And sometimes I feel like people get really attached to a brand and to a brand's messaging primarily. And I think we should just leave room for the idea that even if a brand does have great values, their products might not be supporting our skin in the best way. And I would say that about the products I carry as well. It's about finding what is most supportive for your unique skin and being able to notice when something's not supporting you. And some people's skin will be totally okay with these kinds of products, with these kinds of emulsifiers, and see no issues. But if you do have really dry skin and you're using a cream, go ahead and just take a look at the ingredients, find out what the emulsifier is, and if it's a strong synthetic emulsifier, take a few months off and see if that makes a difference. One way that I like to do this really quickly without having to look up every ingredient is to Google whatever the product is, find the ingredient deck. I usually personally find it to be a red flag if the ingredients aren't readily available on a product on their website. There have been some where I have to do a ton of searching. So that's a real turnoff for me personally. But find the ingredients, pop them into Chat GPT, and ask Chat GPT. It's free. Ask Chat GPT, what are the emulsifiers in this product? What are the synthetic emulsifiers in this product? You could also ask which emulsifiers may contribute to washout effect with skin in this product. Anything like that, and it will give you a pretty good idea. And, take a few months off if you need to. Always just tinker around. There are plenty of really lovely emulsifiers, and I think for a while I did get caught up in my own dogma, like all creams are bad and you should just use oil and toner. But honestly, that's just not true. And I have seen in my practice, some people just do better with a cream, and some people enjoy the feeling of a cream more, and that's important. I would say that it's a good idea if you're switching to an oil or a balm away from a creamy cream or to a more natural cream, that you do want to give your skin time to balance out again, to recalibrate, because your skin can become reliant on certain skincare products that alter the natural functions. And products with certain emulsifiers can temporarily improve the appearance of the skin by providing artificial hydration. But once the product use is discontinued, the skin may feel unusually dry or really uncomfortable until it readjusts to producing its own natural oils and maintaining its own hydration. If the product is discontinued, especially if it's been used long term, the skin may go through an adjustment period. It may take some time, and it may produce less of its own natural moisture factor or sebum, making it feel like it was kind of addicted to that product. So if that's the case, you can moisturize multiple times a day. You can apply a hydrating tonic multiple times a day. Allow it to get back to its natural state, and just know that it will feel uncomfortable for a little bit. Okay, so we are going to finish out with my top 3 favorite ingredients for dry/dehydrated skin. These ingredients are great for both. And this is certainly not an exhaustive list, but I just wanted to give a couple that you can look for. Number 1 is marshmallow root. So, original marshmallows that you eat were made from marshmallow root instead of gelatin. They were made as an herbal remedy for sore throat. And it's kind of like that logic that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. When soaked in water, marshmallow becomes mucilaginous, which is kind of like this cool slime. And you can imagine this would soothe a raw, dry, sore throat. And it's doing that exact same thing on your skin when it's utilized as an ingredient in skincare. I absolutely love the Blissoma Pure Moisturizer and the Live Botanicals Temperate Forest Restoring Complex, which is a hydrating serum, because they both have marshmallow root in them. I also really like beta-glucan. This is a soluble fiber from oats or from mushrooms, and it forms this like breathable film on the skin that helps to lock in moisture by reducing water loss through evaporation. And so it maintains hydration by making the skin appear both more smooth and more plump. And they also stimulate skin repair from a wound for an impaired barrier. And it also is a rich antioxidant, which helps to protect and repair from damage. And then number 3 is seaweed. Topically, seaweed is just so beautiful. I think it's a fantastic option, obviously, both internally and topically. But think of the environment where it's grown. It's cool water situation, and that makes it perfect for a dry, hot situation like irritated, dry skin. It's beautiful healing. It's got great pain relieving effects. The lipids in seaweed support the barrier. It's rich in minerals, which can also contribute to healthy, glowing skin when applied topically. Products in my shop at the time of this recording that have seaweed in them are the Blissoma Peace Evening Calming Elixir, which is a lightweight cream. Lavish beta-glucan recovery mask has seaweed. The refined clay renewal mask. And those are all from Blissoma. And then I'm currently carrying the Fora Everyday Mineral Sunscreen. And I really love the ingredients in that one, which includes seaweed. But if there's an ingredient you're looking for, you can always head to my website and type it into the search bar, and it will populate any blogs I've written about that ingredient or products that I carry that have that ingredient. So today we talked about the difference between dry and dehydrated skin and how to hydrate better. We talked about the causes of dry skin. We talked about modalities that can help, like facial massage and microneedling. I got into my thoughts on products and which ones can be helpful and which ones are not so helpful. And then I finally finished with my 3 favorite ingredients for dry skin, which are marshmallow, beta-glucan, and seaweed. I hope that this has been helpful. If so, I would love if you would send it to a friend who's been complaining about dry skin, or share it on your social media page and tag me so that I can see it. I will be back next week, and until then, be well. You've been listening to the Skin Earth Vitality Podcast. If you like what you heard today, consider giving me a 5-star rating. It helps other people just like you to find the show. You can shop products and find all of my offerings on my website, stratumaesthetics.com, and follow me on my social channels at Stratum Aesthetics.